When money isn't what she wants. In a world obsessed with wealth, ever wonder why some men, without fancy cars or high salaries, still leave a lasting mark on a woman's heart? It's not about looks, it's not about status, it's something deeper, something timeless. Today we journey through 5 rare qualities, rooted in ancient Stoic wisdom, that women secretly crave far more than money. These are not tactics, these are internal truths, and once you absorb them, they won't just attract women, they'll transform you. So, if you're done playing shallow games, if you're ready to build something real, start by watching this to the very end. And if you're new, welcome. You've just entered a brotherhood of men walking with purpose. Let's begin with the kind of presence that speaks louder than any gift. 1. Presence over possessions. She won't remember the brand of your car. She won't recall the cost of the wine, the cut of your suit, or the 5-star view outside the restaurant window. What stays with her, what lingers long after, is the moment you were fully there. When the world fell away and she felt, even for a few minutes, that she was the only person in yours. Presence is not about proximity. You can be in the same room, even at the same table, and yet be miles away. Your eyes flicker toward the screen, your fingers tap the glass. Your thoughts drift to tomorrow's meetings, yesterday's mistakes. And she feels it. She always feels it. Because women are not just listening to your words, they're listening to your silence. They're watching where your soul is, not just where your body sits. True presence begins with intention. It's the discipline of slowing down, of turning the phone face down and the heart face up. It's the willingness to give your full awareness, not as a performance, but as a gift. And like all gifts, it asks for nothing in return but leaves everything behind. Lucius, that quiet Roman soldier, didn't try to impress her. He didn't arrive with jewelry or flattery or clever words rehearsed in the mirror. He arrived with dust on his boots and peace in his gaze. He sat under the olive trees, not to fix her, not to win her, but simply to be with her. And in that rare silence, she felt something even rarer. She felt safe. You see, presence is safety. It's the unspoken message that says, I'm here, I see you, you matter. In a world where everyone's rushing to respond, trying to prove, trying to gain, the man who simply listens, truly listens, is unforgettable. He doesn't interrupt to interject his opinion. He doesn't nod absent-mindedly while crafting his next sentence. He waits. He absorbs. He holds space. If you want to cultivate this kind of presence, start by observing yourself. Notice how often your mind races ahead or lingers behind. Watch how quickly you fill silence with small talk or deflect intimacy with humor. Begin retraining your nervous system to rest in the now. Because that's where connection lives, not in the future you're planning or the past you're analyzing, but in the heartbeat of the present. And here's the paradox. When you stop trying to impress, you become impressive. When you stop trying to hold attention, you command it. The man who is truly present does not need to be loud or flashy. His presence speaks before he does. His stillness is magnetic. His attention is rare. And in a world full of men who are everywhere but here, the one who stays, fully, quietly, soulfully, is the one she remembers. Presence is not something you buy. It's something you choose. And the man who chooses it becomes a sanctuary in a storm, a lighthouse in a chaotic sea, a moment of real in a world built on noise. And that, more than any possession, is what she will crave, long for, and never forget. 2. Emotional discipline over drama. You've felt it. That rush of fear when her reply never comes. That sinking feeling in your gut when her laugh lingers a bit too long with someone else. The mind races, creating stories. Maybe she's lost interest. Maybe you're being replaced. Maybe you were never enough to begin with. And in that moment, many men unravel. They text again, then again. They panic, plead, accuse, withdraw. Not because they're weak, but because they've never been taught the strength of stillness. Emotional discipline isn't coldness. It's not indifference. It's the ability to stand in the fire of uncertainty without flinching. To hold your center while everything around you tempts you to lose it. Most men confuse reaction for passion. They think exploding in anger means they care. But women aren't drawn to emotional chaos. They're drawn to emotional safety. Not the kind that suppresses, but the kind that steadies. Because the world already gives her enough chaos. She doesn't want to come home to more of it. Lucius, our Stoic soldier, understood this. One evening, he returned from battle to find his beloved deep in conversation with a nobleman. Their voices rose in laughter, eyes sparkling in torchlight. Another soldier leaned over, smirking. "She's replacing you," he whispered. Most men would have stormed in, disrupted the scene, demanded answers. But Lucius stood still, back straight, heart steady. He didn't need to dominate the moment. He needed to observe it. And when she later asked why he didn't say anything, he simply replied, "What's real doesn't run. And if it must leave, no force will make it stay." That is the power of a man who owns his emotions rather than being owned by them. If you want to cultivate this, start by noticing the early signs of emotional drift. The tightening in your chest, the impulse to prove, chase or argue. Pause there. Breathe. Ask yourself not, "What do I feel?" but "What does this feeling want me to do?" And then ask, "Is that who I want to be?" Emotional discipline is a decision repeated daily. To respond instead of react. To pause before speaking. To choose clarity over chaos. It's knowing that silence is sometimes stronger than 1,000 words, and that not every emotion deserves the dignity of a performance. If you observe closely, you'll see this pattern everywhere. The man who yells loudest usually fears the most. The one who must be reassured constantly is the one most unsure of himself. But the man who can face discomfort without turning it into drama, that man becomes magnetic. Not because he's emotionless, but because he knows how to feel without falling apart. And that, more than passion or charm, is what earns her deepest trust, not just for a moment, but for a lifetime. 3. Purpose over popularity. Popularity fades, but purpose endures. In a world where everyone is performing for an audience, chasing likes, retweets, validation, a man with purpose is like fire in the cold. He doesn't shine for applause. He shines because that's what fire does. He rises early, not for recognition, but because he knows what he's building. He doesn't need to tell the world what he's doing every day. His life tells the story in silence. Lucius never needed the tavern crowd. While others laughed loudly, eager to be seen, he moved with quiet certainty. Before dawn, he trained his body. At night, he fed his mind. He didn't just fill his time, he invested it. Not because someone told him to, but because his mission demanded it. And women? They noticed. Not in the way they noticed charm or wit, but in the way you feel the presence of something steady, something going somewhere. You see, purpose doesn't need a platform, it needs direction. A man with purpose doesn't drift, he decides. He may walk alone, but his path is lit from within. And when a woman sees that, she doesn't just admire him, she wants to join him. Not because he asked, but because his life calls her forward. This is the quiet truth most men miss. They think attention is affection. They chase visibility. They decorate their lives with performance, hoping it will earn them love. But love doesn't follow noise. It follows gravity. And gravity is built by a man who is grounded in why he's here and where he's going. If you want to cultivate this, begin by subtracting, not adding. Cut out the activities that distract you from your calling. Notice how much of your day is spent reacting instead of creating. Are you checking how you're seen, or are you focusing on what you're becoming? Then go deeper. What breaks your heart in the world? What lights you up when no one's watching? What skill could you master not for the trophy, but for the transformation? That's your path. And the more you walk it, the clearer everything else becomes. When you live this way, you won't have to prove your worth. Your consistency will speak, your values will echo, and the right woman, she'll feel the pull. Not because you promised her anything, but because she sees in you something eternal, a story already in motion, a place where she can belong, not as your goal, but as your witness and companion. Purpose is magnetic. And in a world where everyone's trying to be seen, the man who simply becomes is the one she never stops watching. 4. Integrity over image. Integrity is the quiet strength that holds a man upright when no one is watching. In a world built on image, on filters, on performance, on curated perfection, integrity becomes radical. Anyone can play a role. Anyone can put on charm like a tailored suit. But when the spotlight fades, when the room clears, when there is no audience left to impress, only character remains. And a woman, even if she can't always explain it, can feel when a man's words and his soul don't match. Lucius was offered everything most men crave: gold, a title, influence. All he had to do was turn his head, pretend not to see, compromise, just once. No one would have blamed him. In fact, others were already doing it. But he said no, not because he wanted to be seen as righteous, but because he couldn't look himself in the mirror otherwise. That's the thing about integrity. It's not about public opinion. It's about private alignment. That night, when his lover looked into his eyes and said, "I love you because I never have to guess who you are," it wasn't flattery. It was relief. Because when a woman knows she's with a man who won't fold under pressure, who won't change to fit in, who won't betray his values just to climb higher, she can rest, and rest is rare. If you want to build this kind of integrity, start by becoming brutally honest with yourself. Where are you bending your truth to be liked? Where are you saying yes when you mean no? Where are you showing the world a polished image while hiding the parts you fear won't be accepted? Then begin practicing integrity in small things. Show up when you say you will. Keep promises, even when it's inconvenient. Speak the truth, not the version that gets applause. And most of all, stop selling yourself for approval, because the cost is too high. The world might reward your image, but only the right woman will fall in love with your truth. Integrity isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. It moves differently. It looks someone in the eye without flinching. It walks away from opportunities that don't align. It apologizes when wrong, and it stands firm when right. And over time, it builds a reputation far more valuable than status. It builds trust. Charm may get her attention, but integrity, that's what keeps her heart. Because in the long run, every woman wants to feel emotionally safe, not entertained, not dazzled, but secure. And only a man who is consistent, honest, and unshakably himself can offer that kind of safety, that kind of love, that kind of peace. 5. Silence over showing off. Power is often mistaken for volume, for grand gestures, for the need to be seen, heard, acknowledged. But real power moves in silence. It walks into a room and speaks before words are ever spoken. It doesn't beg for attention, it commands it by presence alone. The man who is truly strong doesn't need to declare it. He carries it. And in that stillness, there's a gravity that pulls everyone closer. Lucius understood this. After returning from a mission that most believed he wouldn't survive, he entered the command hall covered in dust and blood. One by one, soldiers stood tall and shared their stories. How they led, how they fought, how they survived. When it was his turn, Lucius simply bowed his head and said, "My reward is the outcome, not the applause." And with that, the room fell into a quiet that said more than any medal ever could. Because in that moment, everyone knew. This is what strength looks like. Silence, when it comes from a place of confidence, is magnetic. It's not the silence of insecurity, but of certainty. A man who doesn't need to overshare, to oversell, to overcompensate, he becomes the mystery that others lean into. Women especially feel this. When a man doesn't try to prove himself with possessions or endless stories of his conquests, when he lets his energy speak louder than his words, she leans in not out of curiosity, but because she senses something rare. To cultivate this kind of presence, practice restraint. The next time you feel the urge to tell someone your accomplishments, pause. Ask yourself, is this being shared from strength or from the need to be validated? Pay attention to how often you fill silence with unnecessary explanations, justifications, or self-promotion. Instead, let your calm speak for you. Watch the men who don't talk much in a room, but are always listened to when they do. Observe how they choose their words, how they wait, how they carry stillness like a blade, sharp and deliberate. Then emulate that discipline, not as a tactic, but as a reflection of your inner stability. Because in a culture obsessed with being seen, the one who can remain composed and quiet becomes the most compelling. Silence isn't emptiness, it's intention. It's choosing not to reveal everything, knowing that the unknown is often more powerful than the known. And when you master this, when your silence becomes a language of its own, people will stop just hearing you. They'll start feeling you. So stop trying to impress. Start becoming. Speak less, build more, show less, live deeper. And you'll discover that the man who doesn't chase the spotlight often becomes the one it naturally follows. Closing. Be rare, be real. So why do women love these 5 things more than money? Because money can impress her mind, but they captivate her soul. And the man who masters presence, emotional strength, purpose, integrity, and silence, he becomes unforgettable. Not because he tried to be, but because he simply was. Lucius wasn't rich, but his soul was wealthy. And that wealth, that's what a woman remembers, that's what she follows. So here's your path. Be present, not distracted. And be disciplined, not reactive. Be purposeful, not popular. Be true, not curated. Be quiet, but powerful. As Marcus Aurelius said, look well into thyself. There is a strength within that always rises if you dare to look.